a streaming of the event, which will also be saved on our new YouTube channel afterwards, just so you know. And we'll get some food after the talk around 12:15, I think. What else? That's all yours.
Great, thank you. So, I love talking with students. I find it inspiring and energizing, unlike most of the other talks I give. So, I'm really excited to be here to talk with all of you. And I don't want it just to be about me talking to you. I really want to hear what you have to say, and what concerns you have, and what questions you have. And you can really lead the discussion in a number of different ways based on what you're interested in and what things you're seeing in academia and problems and what you're encountering in your own career so far. So please don't treat this just like a talk. It's like interrupt me all the time, ask questions, make comments. What about this? What about that? Who was at my union talk? The talk a couple days. Okay, good. Only a few of you, because basically there's a lot of similar stuff, and then some extra stuff too. So I don't want you to get bored. I have slides that we can cover. I can do the talk. I also have a section devoted to discussion points. So I think I have like 4 questions that we can do like discussing with your neighbor or in small groups, and we can come back together and talk about what you would do in these cases. So all of these are situations that I've been in where I'm like, what do I do in this case? Like, I've got this ethical dilemma right now, what should I do? And I have information about what I chose to do. There are so many other things that could have been done. I'm really curious to hear what you might do in this situation, and maybe it's useful for you to talk about this too, because one thing that I notice is like every week there's like a new ethical thing that I need to figure out what I think about. And I can only figure it out by talking with other people. So anyway, I thought that might be interesting to discuss, but if there's a question that you have that we should discuss, that's great too. So please feel free to help lead our time together. We have a lot of time, so let's just have some fun with it. So, Bullied into Bad Science. It's a campaign that's not just for scientists. So we called it Bullied into Bad Science because it sounded catchier than Bullied into Bad Research. But really, we're about everyone who does research. And all my friends in the humanities, when I talk with them, we all have the same problem. I see them as doing research. Sometimes they don't call it that, but it's essentially the same. We're doing the same kind of stuff. And interestingly, I discovered that they have the same. They're under the same pressures that we are. Maybe they are producing books, and so sometimes it's a different format, but I think there's a lot of overlap, and there's a lot of innovation that we could be benefiting from by incorporating more fields. So this is really for everyone, for all early career researchers. So we are about, we started because we were early career researchers who were feeling pressured into doing particular things that we didn't think were particularly ethical or good for science, our science. We are often told that we have to publish in particular journals to get a job or a grant, and these journals are journals like Science and Nature, which are not particularly open, and we feel like our science can do better if we're engaging in more open practices. So we don't want to be hindered by the journals that people think we should be publishing in. And so we want people to look at us for our research and value us for doing better research, not for publishing in particular places, for example. So we made this petition, which has 8 points on it, and we're asking individuals and institutions to take action on these 8 points and implement these 8 points at their institutions and in their daily lives, if they're a senior researcher or someone else who's making decisions that affect the lives of researchers. So there are things like value preprints on CVs. This is when you post a archive or bioarchive. For me, I'm a biologist, so I put preprints at that bioarchive, which means like, usually I do it when I submit a paper to a journal. Just before I submit it to the journal, so it's like pretty polished and ready to go, I'll put it on bioarchive first, which is a free place to put it, and then it's available to the public. Anyone can read it, and I can get more reviewer comments that way as well, with more feedback on the work as it's going through peer review when I submit it to the journal as well.
You don't have any problem getting published afterwards? You can do that.
So there is a website you can go to called Sherpa Romeo, and it lists all the journals that have entered into the database so far. It lists whether they will accept a submission if it's also a preprint online or not, and it's becoming really widespread. Like basically, journals have to accept articles if they're also a preprint out there, because everyone's doing it. So most journals do accept that. If there's a preprint on bioarchive or archive, you can totally submit it to this journal. It'll go through that peer review process, and if it gets accepted, they'll publish it, and they have no problem with the preprint version. You can even update the preprint up until, so like it's going through peer review at that journal. You can keep revising your preprint with all the versions until you get the proof. When you get the proof, if you've signed over your copyright, then the journal owns that after that. But up until the proof, you can put the revised version on bioarchive. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of change happening right now, but really preprints have taken off. And there's also a cool thing called it's hashtag JC preprint or preprint JC. JC stands for Journal Club. So now people are starting to do seminars and journal clubs on not published papers but on preprints. And then what they talk about, they'll write up afterward and they'll comment on it at the particular preprint place so that the authors get feedback, which is kind of a cool thing to do. You know, you're making the seminar more useful and you're being useful to science as well. So that's another. I mean, preprints are just like going nuts right now, which is great. So another thing we ask in one of these 8 points, we actually now have 9 points. The 9th point was added later on, so it's on the website, but not on the particular petition. Is we're asking universities and individuals and departments to sign DORA, the Declaration on Research Assessment, which probably all of you know about this, but I'll say it anyway. It says that if you're a signatory, you're saying that you will judge and select people for when you're hiring a position and when you're selecting people for other kinds of things, that you'll select based on looking directly at their research outputs and not using metrics. So you won't look at journal names when deciding who to hire. You won't look at the number of papers or the H-index. You'll actually read their work and you'll judge them based on what you think their quality is. And this university has signed DORA, the whole university has, which is super exciting. And that was a couple of years ago, so this is a really, really great place to be when you're interested in this kind of stuff and want to try and innovate. It's so much easier to innovate when you're in a place like this that's already on the edge and open and talking about this kind of stuff than it is when you're at a place like the University of Cambridge, where I was when I was starting to look about science. So yeah, it's a pretty cool place to be right now. So if you're an early career researcher, you can sign this petition, and the things that we do with this petition are, so far we've got 157 signatories from early career researchers, and we do things like submit it. We submitted this as written evidence to UK Parliament, where they were doing an investigation into research integrity and how can they improve it in the UK, and then they'll make some policy, and that will trickle down to the universities. And so we were able to submit our petition with all, at that point, like 140 signatories saying, you know, this is our evidence, and they accepted it into their investigation, and so we'll see what happens in terms of how it gets implemented. But these are the kinds of things that we're doing with the petition. And So as soon as the Bully and Bad Science campaign started, it kind of launched with this article in the UK, Sunday Times, where it went really big, and it was really exciting. And immediately, I started getting emails from senior researchers saying, "How can I help?" And I was just like amazed, because there are all these people out there that want to change things, and they know that we're in a really hard situation, and so are they. And they want to change academia for the better too. So I created this list of supporters, and that's also at our website. And so that people like this could sign up and tell people, all right, what am I doing as a senior researcher to change academic culture for the better and to better support really career researchers. So you can see on this list who people are, where they are, and then what their commitment is and how they're enacting change and trying to make changes in academic culture. So it's really exciting, and I think for students it could be a resource for if you're looking for your next job or a postdoc or something. You know, it's a way that you can find people who might have similar ethics to yourself. Or if they're not on this list, gives you some ideas for what you can ask people when you're thinking about joining their lab. So what we hear a lot about, and which I don't have any data on, so I am not sure how much of this is myth and how much of this is actually true, because as early career researchers, we aren't on these selection committees. These journals like to do is publish novel things, and they'll only publish novel things. So you've got to tell a pretty sexy story to convince people that this is novel and like the first thing in the world, and it's going to have this huge impact on everything. So, so to get your research into this sexy story, usually what happens is people will start to do things like p-hacking, which means like you'll analyze your data in as many different ways as you can to get to the p result, to p-value. And this is not exactly good science, because what you should be doing is, before you do the study, you know what analysis you're going to do. You do that one analysis, and then you accept it as, okay, this is what this means about my study. Because the more you analyze the data set, the more likely you are to have a significant p-value. If p-values are what you're relying on, and usually in these fields, people are still relying on p-values. So p-hacking is not a great practice that usually has to be engaged in to get this kind of sexy story out there. Another thing that can happen is, oh, all right, well, your main hypothesis wasn't supported. There was no significant p-value for that one. But in the process of p-hacking your data set, you found some other significant things, but we weren't really thinking about those when we started the study, so, well, let's just pretend like we were, and we'll change the introduction to say, oh, I hypothesized this about this particular variable, and oh, look, it was significant. And that's called harking, which is hypothesizing after the results are known. And these things, they're really common practices, and it's not usually common knowledge that this is actually doing bad science, So people do this all the time, and it's not that they're trying to, do bad science, it's that they're not even aware that this is an issue, because this is what everyone does, and this is what they're doing to get their papers into these journals. And so it's really a matter of kind of going back to the beginning and learning, well, scientific process, how does that work? And if I'm taking away this whole idea of what these incentives are, like what does my science look like at that point, which I'll get more into. So a lot of these journals don't support these open practices that you need to have to ensure that p-hacking didn't happen and that harking didn't happen. And I'll tell you about some of those in a bit. But first, I wanted to look at, okay, well, what happens when we play this game? When we're trying to get these, we're engaging in these practices to get these papers in these journals. What happens when we're publishing this way? So I will take you through two life cycles of a particular article. One is the exploitative route, and one is the ethical route. That's what I call it. And see how the process works both ways. So on the exploitative route, that's me in the middle. I'm a researcher. I'm inside academia. Academia is on the inside of the circle. And I just got a paper accepted at this subscription-based journal. Yay, I think, because that cost me nothing. Sweet, I just published this paper for free. And by subscription-based journal, I mean that it's a journal that my university subscribes to, or a university somewhere in the world subscribes to. They pay money to the publisher, and then people at that university can read those articles. So what I don't see, though, and this is the key part, yeah?
Should we try and take a microphone to you? Because some people are watching it on the live stream, and they have some issues with sound.
Oh, they're starting to comment and say that they have issues?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
And they also want to see the slides.
Okay.
Sure, we can also move the camera a bit.
Yeah. So the microphone is here. Do I just turn it on? Has it already happened anything?
Maybe we can put it in the middle. Yeah, you just need to turn it on.
Okay.
Yeah, pass it to some upper, some levels up, because the slides are not shown.
Yep.
Can we just angle it?
I think 2 rows maybe up. Yeah, one more.
No, I think you're good.
Good? Okay.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's getting.
How's that? Yeah?
Yeah, if it's too loud, and we can only just adjust the speakers, and people will get the sound on the screen. But we hear you perfectly fine.
Okay, good. Is this too loud?
No.
No, okay. Feels loud in my ears, but as long as it's not blasting yours, that's good. Okay, so the key thing here is that what I think costs nothing actually costs $5,000 US dollars. And it was what academia paid on my behalf to be able to read this article, because I published it in a subscription-based journal. So the library has to subscribe to this particular journal to be able, for the students and everyone to be able to read the article. And it's very, very costly. And so researchers, we don't see this, we just click submit, and yay, everything kind of magically happens. So this paper goes out there in the world. Of this $5,000 that it costs academia on my behalf to get this article published in this journal, the profits, 37% around, go to shareholders, because most of the research that is published is for particular publishers. And that's Elsevier, Taylor and Francis, Wiley, and Springer Nature. And they're all publicly traded companies, meaning that they're on the stock market. And so whoever owns shares in these companies is making money off of the public funding our research and us putting our papers there. So, and the deal with these particular corporations, they're for-profit corporations, publicly traded, their whole goal is to maximize profits, which is completely at odds with the goal of academia, which is to share research. So there's all this money being drained outside of academia. Public funding is just going completely outside of academia to fund these shareholders, which we aren't usually one of. So when we've got that happening, we think, all right, well maybe we're getting some money for, some value for our money. But the deal is that it's us researchers who are editing and reviewing these papers for the publishers, so we're providing that service for free for them as well. We're providing the product for them for free, we're providing the quality control for them for free, but it's also not free. So in terms of reviewers, I have numbers there, I don't have numbers for editors, but in terms of reviewers, it costs 1.9 billion pounds per year for all around the world of in-kind money, which means like you get paid through the university, so the time that you're spending reviewing is that's how much time that adds up to 1.9 billion per year. So this is another thing that the publishers are getting for free. We're doing all this work, and then we're just completely giving it away, and then we pay them so that we can read our own research. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And we can't always read our own research because then it goes behind the papers behind a paywall. This is a subscription-based journal. Only those libraries that can afford a subscription to this particular journal can, are where the university students and faculty can look at this paper and read it. But there are so many universities out there where they can't even afford one journal subscription. So we're discriminating against our peers when we publish in subscription-based journals because there are people who, a lot of researchers who can't read our research. Then, that doesn't even say, like, people like patients and medical doctors also can't read the research because hospitals don't really subscribe to journals because it's so expensive. And then the public can't read it either. And the public is who funded it in the first place. So this is a completely broken loop where money is being drained out of academia and it's and then the research is not available to the public or researchers even. So what can we do as researchers? And I think that it's important that we see the process, that we know how publishing works, and that we connect the costs of our choices of where I submit this paper with the choice of submitting the paper. So the choices need to be connected with the costs. So I know what the consequences are for making this particular choice to publish in this particular place. And we can change our behavior. We can stop exploiting ourselves and discriminating against others because every option that we need actually exists right now to do it a completely different way and in a way that what I call is ethical. So here's my ethical framework. It's based on these three principles. One is that researchers and publishers have a responsibility to the public to provide them with free access to publicly funded products because knowledge is a common good. I mean, it just is. We don't really, I don't see an argument about how that could not be a common good. So we need to treat it like it is. And then the publishers of research products have a responsibility to researchers to value the generation and packaging of knowledge, which we are doing completely, usually for free. Some editors do get paid, but I think they're kind of in the minority. And then researchers have a responsibility to the public to conduct rigorous research because it will serve the foundation for future discoveries, it provides the best value for money, and it will earn public trust, which is really important these days. I was just talking with a PhD student here who is studying information literacy, where that is key. So yeah, maybe you would have more to say about that angle as well. So here's the ethical life cycle of the paper as I see it. I am in the middle again. I bought this paper and I submitted it to a 100% open access journal. And it got accepted, and I think, yay! Now, Depending on the journal, in advance, when I submit my paper somewhere, I get to decide how much, if my paper gets accepted, how much I want to pay. Because there's variation. Some journals are free. Actually, yesterday, John Tennant had the number of about, I think it was about 70% of 100% open access journals do not charge any article processing charges. So most OA journals are free. I can choose to publish in a journal that's free. I can choose to publish in a journal that charges article processing charges. But it's my choice. And then it's this one cost that's charged. This is the only cost that's involved, that academia is not paying anything else on my behalf. And I decide how much of the public funding I'm going to spend on this particular article, right from the beginning. Now, we still have the same amount of in-kind editor and reviewer time. Those costs are still there because they're the same people doing the same kinds of services, except now that money is staying inside academia. If you choose a publisher that, so there's looking at the journals, open access, and they have these article processing charges or not, and then this particular journal is still published by someone. So if you choose a journal at a publisher that is what I call ethical, then you can keep the profits inside of academia. So I've kind of started looking at these article processing charges, if I choose to pay them, as like a charitable donation. Do I think that I want to donate to this charity? Are they doing good work that I think that is good for academia and for the public? So I publish articles in PeerJ, which is a for-profit corporation, but it's almost free to publish there. And Jason Hoyt, the CEO, does a lot of work to try to change academic culture for the better. So I think that's a good cause. Also, it's not a per article. I mean, you can do per article pay per article fees, but you can also join the community. So like, I'm a lifetime member, and it costs me something like $100. So the more papers I publish there, like the less and less it costs per article. So it's a different model, and he's trying to develop different models to see what can help us as researchers do better research. Yeah.
Just an idea, are there publishers who charge like universities for subscription, and then researchers in that university can publish for free?
Like an open access journal? Or in general?
In general, instead of for reading, they are subscribing to publish.
Subscribing to publish. So, okay, I'm not totally sure I'm understanding, but let me give
Like
one
you have Springer or something for which university pays to get access.
Yeah.
But again, you are publishing, there's a publishing cost as well to Springer.
So,
I'm saying that university pays that anyone affiliated to this university in this journal can publish for free, but university pays a large amount just for overall approval, and then
it's called a routed fit. So it's when they simply shift like the journal, simply shift its focus from access to subscription or to publication. So that's like any journal that charge money to begin with for reading, for access to articles. It's model to have the university pay for research or publishing open access.
So are you talking about flipping from a subscription-based journal to an open access journal? Or?
Yeah. Just that the university still keeps on paying for the journal only. The journal just switches essentially.
What did you call that?
It's called a rousing.
A rouse?
It's after someone called Mark Rose.
Oh. But the researchers don't pay the open access fee. The university says, like, has some kind of agreement, you can publish this many open access papers or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Lainey, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that there are some publicly funded open access initiatives. I think mostly in the humanities or books, like Open Library of Humanities, knowledge on that. But there are some, but the biggest publishers, they usually have these. But that's all.
Okay.
Yeah, just add on to what Lucy was saying, it's a big issue in the negotiations with the publishers to get a deal where instead of buying for access, paying for access, where we as the university consortium, like the Norwegian consortium, is trying to get a deal where we pay for the publishing, the ABC, so to speak, or in fact the both side, just also the reading, also the access to read anything in there, and in addition the free publishing, no ABC per article, just paying a lump sum. They're quite costly. These are mainly commercial publishers, and they're asking a heavy price. So it's an issue. It's a money issue, of course.
It is a money issue because it actually, I don't have this slide in this particular talk, but the actual cost of archiving a PDF online costs something like $1 US. So anything that costs more is publishers trying to charge more for whatever they think they're providing. So it costs almost nothing to put these PDFs out there, and they're not doing anything to the PDFs to make them better quality. So what the heck are we paying them for? Even if it's open access, you know? Yes, and open access. So this is where the ethical publisher comes in, right? Because I could publish open access at an Elsevier journal, but there's no way I would do that. I'm not going to give them my products because they're probably not going to allow me to keep the rights to my paper. So this is the whole, I'll talk about the CC BY 4.0, which means that if you have this license on a piece of content that's out there in the world, then that means that anyone can read, reuse, text mine, data mine this particular research output and use it while crediting the original authors. So a lot of the big publishers like to try and keep copyrights. So if you publish a paper, I remember the first time I ever did this, I thought this was really weird. I published my first papers in subscription-based journals, and I had to sign this agreement that said that they would have the copyright to my work. And I just thought, well, okay, I don't really know what that is about, but I'll sign this thing because I want my paper to be published. And if I don't sign it, I don't know if it's going to be published, so I'll just sign this. And so I signed over the copyright, so now I don't own the rights to my own research product. So it's also about looking at the picture of, we need to keep the rights to our papers, and which publishers have the option to do that right now. So it's about looking at a lot of other factors when considering to publish, beyond just the journal, also the publisher. Where are they making their money from? Where does the money go? Do I want to donate this public money to this particular publisher? Do I think they're doing good work? So it can take a lot of research to figure out which journals might align with your particular ethics. For my field of animal behavior, I made a list of journals that are general science as well as animal behavior kind of specific, and I put it at my website so that, because people ask me all the time when I'm giving talks in zoology, what journals should I publish in? And so I can say for my field what journals I would publish in, and I give a breakdown on my website about what are the kind of, how do these particular journals check different boxes? Like, can you publish the peer review alongside the article? Is it CC BY 4.0? Is the publisher researcher owned or researcher run? Or is it a nonprofit or a for-profit? So I can all these factors for me are important in deciding whether this is a place that's ethical to put public money and public products into. So now, because it's an open access paper, it's available to read by everyone, and including the public, and that closes the loop because the public funds research, and usually, and so it's this kind of like sustainable life cycle. You know, nothing's being drained out of it, and everything's kind of staying in academia. And I have a fun story for this. You know, people sometimes ask, well, does the public really read research? And they do. So I started publishing only open access at 100% open access journals a few years ago. And I did bird research and bird cognition research, and I had this one paper published at PeerJ, and the New York Times did this really gorgeous video kind of summary of my research. It was beautiful. And it went out there in the world, and a lot of people saw it, and I get an email maybe like a year later from a high school student in Texas who said, oh, I read your paper, which for me says, oh my gosh, for one, they had access to it. They're a high school student. High schools don't pay journal subscriptions, so she could read it. She could also understand it. I try to not use jargon as much as I can, and if I do, I try to define my terms early on, so she could understand what I was talking about. And she's like, yeah, I want to do, on the same species that you work on, I want to do this like test on them in the wild for my science fair. And I was like, this is amazing. So the public reads research, and this is now contributing to more research happening by the public. It's just, I love it. I love it. This is what, for me, this is about. This is research, getting knowledge out there and like having it be something to build on. So, when you publish open access, it results in more readers, obviously, which results in more media attention, and you can get more citations that way as well. And then authors of open access articles, it's been shown that they have more opportunities for jobs and grants as well. So there are benefits to us doing this. It's not necessarily this big, scary thing to tackle. Again, I don't know how much of the scary tactics are like actually real or not, because I don't have empirical evidence for this, but this is what I'm thinking in my mind anyway. So one thing I was asked to consider in this talk was, you know, I could try taking this topic a few different ways. One thing is, if I were starting my PhD today, what would I do? How would I do it? And so I thought I would take that track and cover a couple of things that are specific, I think that are specific to students in terms of particular power that you have and can wield, and also the practices I'm starting to learn about right now about running my own lab. I mean, when you're a PhD student, you run your own research, and I think that the tools that I'm learning about might be interesting, maybe handy for you as well. So I'll cover these topics, which are, as students, you can vote with your money. I know in a lot of these great European countries, it doesn't cost money to go to university, but you still have student representatives and unions, so you can work through them as well. Select a supportive supervisor, I'll cover that as well. I actually had a really supportive supervisor for my PhD, but neither of us knew anything about all the stuff that I'm getting into now, so there wasn't like, it wasn't something that I was even thinking about back then. Making research transparent and open, I'll talk about how I'm using software to do that, and then how to address my implicit biases against particular groups of people to select undergraduates fairly. As a PhD student, I worked with a lot of undergrads, so this is potentially relevant to you as well. And then there's now a way to hopefully select editors that support open practices, so I'll talk about each of these pieces. So I think that students are in a unique position of power, because unlike the rest of us, like faculty and researchers at universities who get paid by the university, you give your money to the university, or the university is dependent on the students being there in some way. You don't pay here, yeah. Okay, so so all the grad students here actually get paid, like, period, for PhDs. Okay, that's really cool. That's very cool. Do you have a student union?
There's a student union of the students, and there's a PhD which is organized today.
Okay.
There's a PhD.
Yeah, but there is a union for academics, and there is a union that represents, like, each one of us, I mean, we can join the union, we pay a little bit of fees, and then we get even increase on our salary sometimes. We get more benefits, more insurance, and we get a lawyer to defend us if we want to negotiate our salary with the university. So we have completely right like any other employee.
That's great.
In the government. Yeah.
So you have a union.
Education, everything.
Oh my gosh, okay. Yeah, this is blowing my mind. So I'm from the US, where that doesn't like, yeah, no. Anybody who's in Germany, I think is not quite that far. So, yeah, wow. Okay, but if you have a union, then that is a place of leverage that you can work through to say to your university, like, look, I don't want, you lobby your university to say, I want your, the public funding that comes to this university to be spent in this way or that way, like, don't subscribe to journals. And you can, I think that there is a way to use this pressure, in this particular piece of leverage to try and make changes at the university. So even though there's not money involved on your part in terms of you paying as a customer, there is a point of leverage. And so it'd be really interesting to see what could happen with this. I mean, these are like just the ideas that I've had so far, and so it would be really interesting to hear from more people, like what you think are other points of leverage that could be used. And at least at this university, it seems like they would be open to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So at the you got to correct me if I'm wrong, but at the university library there is a person called Jan Francois. I'm on a reunion conference. He was wearing this little pin which said "I love open access." And so he sent him an email and asked for help to publish open access, and he answered very quickly. And I think also we can get grants from him, or he has like and also like a fund which helps students publish open access. So he's really helpful. So you should contact him if you want to also help publish open access.
Nice.
We have a non-personal contact address as well, so Jan is a great guy, but we're not dependent on him. And we have a fund that is supporting open access publishing with the article processing charges. And in order to try to avoid the most greedy publishers, we have a limit of 25,000 Norwegian kroner per article. So the most expensive journals, we cannot fund 100% of the articles. But the 25,000 kroner is enough for the most of the journals. The name of the fund? The contact address, of course, it's what is it again? It's fund at UIT. Say again. Fund at ub.uit.nl.
Oh yes, because it's the university library.
Yeah. You need to do
Yeah.
you find this on the web, of course. Or the library.
Nice.
You can just Google UIT and publishing fund. Then you find all the info.
Nice. Thank you for the resources. This is great to have local knowledge like this. But you can also weigh in on things that are happening and changing, and it seems to be a lot going on here. The first talk in the Moonin conference was from Martin. Wait, what's his name?
Kenneth
Bruce.
Pro-rector?
Yeah.
Vice Chancellor?
Which is basically the vice chancellor of the university. Yeah. he was seemingly very, really working hard to make all these changes, and he was really on board. That's exciting, because when you have someone at that level who's supportive, it makes the other changes you want to make a lot easier. And he was still saying there's more work to do. Like, he was talking specifically about how the university signed DORA, and he was saying that there were still some issues about how some of the selection processes are happening, like some policies that are still in place that would be great to change. So there are potentially ways that students could get, throw your leverage around as well. I think that the key is that students are not powerless, and if you have a union, I mean, I think unions are pretty amazing in terms of making changes. So you potentially, put some pressure, leverage your power there too, and it's a matter of getting more involved in the conversation and what are the issues, and feeling like you can stand in and weigh in on have a voice and weigh in on these issues, because it's going to come up a lot when you get, as soon as you start applying for things during your PhD, like what comes next. So you can also exert selection pressure on who you want to work with next. So this is, I mentioned a little bit at the beginning, where, a lot of us don't learn about how kind of corrupt academia can be until we're really far into it. I didn't learn about it until my second year of my first postdoc. So, a lot of students come to me and say, I wish I would have known this before, and then I could have chosen a different lab, because this lab that I'm in right now is really frustrating, and I don't feel like I fit there, and I don't want to be pressured into doing these things. And so, if people are more aware of this earlier on, they can be asking particular questions. So before I chose my PhD supervisor, I was emailing particular people and saying, to try and figure out if we were going to be a good match for each other, like enough research interest overlap and enough. I could have been asking, here are my publishing ethics. Would you be supportive of these publishing ethics? I didn't even know to ask that question at the time. But now, if I wanted to work somewhere in the future, after my current position ends, I can be asking these questions. So it's a matter of exerting selection pressures. And for instance, if you're, applying to a university to get into it or something, and you can't find someone at the university who would even support your publishing ethics, you could make a complaint to the university saying, look, they're not supportive of these, what I call good scientific practices, so that's a bit of a problem. Maybe you should start looking into that. So I think that these kinds of selection pressures, we should be thinking about, who has leverage, who has power to exert what selection pressures at which point, and then use that power whenever I get another piece of power, like I recently reviewed a grant, I'm like, oh good, there's my chance to do some more good in the world, Let's not try and pay this, pass the buck and pay this crazy system forward. Let's try and fix it whenever we can. And there are a lot of places you can go to get support. I know that it can feel pretty alone when you're starting out, especially when you're starting out with how do I want to be in this academic world, and how are things changing, and what do I think about all of this? OpenCon is a great place. If you haven't heard of it, it's a conference that happens once a year, but it's also this community, and they do a monthly community call that anyone can call into and learn about a particular topic that day. I haven't been to an OpenCon conference, but I hear it is absolutely life-changing. So it's something you can apply to join. There are also OpenCon satellite groups. I was part of the OpenCon Cambridge group. It was a group that met once a month and talked about issues, and that's kind of how Bullied in Bad Science got started, because that's where I met these people who were like, whoa, that's how it works? Wait a minute. So I was doing all this research to figure out how does scholarly publishing work. I just went down this rabbit hole, and every time I turn a corner, there was a whole other bundle of problems, and you're trying to work out, well, what's actually real, because this Elsevier contract says this, but I think that's probably not what actually, what does it mean in real life? and what actually happened there. And so it was this great place to access resources and talk to people who knew more than me about various pieces and should try to put all the pieces together into some kind of picture of what academia, what is it like behind the scenes. So there is also, at the universities, there are usually harassment offices, like bullying is a form of harassment. You can talk to people there, usually it's confidential. And human resources usually has ways that you can report, you know, if it gets to be to the point where it's affecting you psychologically and in other ways you can have someone to talk to and figure out like what might you want to do about it if you're in a particular situation where you're feeling uncomfortable. There is DORA, which is a great place to get support. You can look at the individuals and institutions who've signed that. This university is one. And John Tennant's Open Science MOOC, massive online open course. It's free. You can learn all kinds of stuff about what's going on in open research, how to do it, how to code, how to use software. I mean, it's just like this huge resource. So what's nice about it is that anyone can access it from anywhere. So it's not a proprietary kind of thing. It's a place to go and learn and connect with others as well. So there are resources out there, and these are just a few, but I wanted to point them out just so that you had a place where you could not feel alone if you were starting to, where there's a lot of people in the room too, so you could use each other as support. So making my lab transparent and open. So this is the part about, I'm doing this thing right now where I got this chance last year to start my own lab and hire people and really get my research program going like full speed. And I thought, you know, since I'm starting over at a new field site from scratch, this is a great opportunity to figure out how do I do science, how do I do my science open and transparently? Like, what does that mean on the ground? And so for me as a field biologist, this is what works for me. Different things may work for you, but I wanted to give you an idea of like the flavor of this. So all of what I study, all of my studies, only before they become a paper, I pre-register them. So what this means is that it's the study plan that goes up online, and there are ways you can make it so that people can't see it, and there are ways you can make it so that it's open to the public right away. And what it is, it's my study plan. So it's my hypothesis, my predictions, my methods, and my analysis plan. I put my analysis plan out kind of detailed, like I usually write out the R code for it so that people can see this is what I'm planning to do. And it's at GitHub, which is cool because it's date and time stamped. So whenever I make changes, it automatically does this track changes thing for me, and then you can see the date and time that happened, and whether it was before I collected any data or after I collected any data. So the pre-registration happens before you collect the data, and then you do your study, and then you write up a paper, and then that goes, you just submit to wherever you want. What I also do with my pre-registrations is I get them peer-reviewed. So before the study happens, before I collect data, I have a pre-registration peer-reviewed at PCI Ecology, which I'll tell you more about a bit later. It's a way that I can get feedback before the work actually happens, which is exciting because after the work has happened, I can't change how I did it. And so if there was a problem that I could have easily fixed, that was a pretty big waste of resources. So I've been doing that. All of my results, data code, everything are published, and they're at 100% open access journals that are at what I call ethical publishers in my field of animal behavior. And then since I'm able to hire people as well, I have a postdoc and 2 research technicians, I started enacting DORA. So I am choosing people based on not metrics, but I read their work, and I say that in the job advertisements. And I also, I want people, well, they kind of have to be people who are willing to engage in open practices, because I only allow all the grackle papers, the grackles are the birds that I work on, all of the project papers have to be published according to my ethics. So if someone isn't okay with that in the beginning, we talk about it and see whether we'd be a good match or not. So far, I mean, I thought that was going to be a really big sticking point when I was hiring postdocs particularly, but it turns out like I actually have to bring it up. So like, are you okay with that? Would you be okay with all the publications being in these particular journals and doing it this way? And they're like, oh, that sounds exciting. I'm really looking forward to learning more about that. I really want to do that. It's one of the attractive points. And I'm like, okay, I just thought there was going to be more resistance to this, but no, I've only encountered really eager people. So that's been cool to see. And then I select people, so as I said before, I'm working on my implicit biases so that I can select people fairly. And so I try to counteract my implicit biases by building into the structure of how I select people ways that I can't rely on implicit biases to make decisions. So I'll tell you more about those in a minute. So first I'll go through the workflow. So this is the part where how do I get from hypothesis to the paper. So the question I had when I first started setting up this lab a year ago was, all right, is having an open and transparent lab going to make my science better? And is it going to make it faster and easier? These were questions I had. And in the end, the answer to all of these was yes. It's faster, better, and easier doing it this way. So that was exciting. So first, as I said, I pre-register all my studies. I put them up at GitHub. It's my public repository. And I do this using R Markdown files, which I'll show you in a second. It's where you put the text and the analysis code that you use in R all in the same document. And then all you have to do is click run, and everything just magically happens all at once. And I don't have to go fishing around for files or anything. Then I submit it to peer community ecology, and it goes through peer review. What's happening on the ground is I'm coordinating my team using a variety of products. And as a result of my Moonin talk a couple days ago, some people were telling me that, oh, it'd be nice if you were using open source software. Totally agree. I just wasn't able to find open source versions. And then people started telling me, oh, there's this, and that. Oh, okay, so they're just harder to find. So I hope to replace the non-open source versions here with open source versions, but I'm still learning about those right now. So there's a Twitter conversation happening with the Moonin 2018 hashtag if you're interested in following that part. So OSF is Open Science Framework. It's a nonprofit-owned website where you can set up your project there, and you can have pieces that are public and pieces that are private. And what I do is I use it to put all my permits, so my researchers always have access to the permits, because when we're out and we're trapping birds, we need to be able to show the public our permits. We have there's a wiki as part of it, so you can put files up, there's a wiki, anyone can edit the wiki, all the undergrads are part of this, so they can make changes too. In the wiki, we put things like links to all of our data sheets, so people can easily access everything. It's just like, you go there in the morning, you click on this data protocol wiki, and then everything you need for the day is going to be there, and you can just click around on the links to get to the right data sheets and find the right protocols to tell you how to do what you're doing that day. So it's a really nice kind of organizing place. We share photos on Google Photos, so even undergrads can upload photos where we need to take pictures of the birds in particular cases, and then everyone has access to them, so it's not just sitting on one computer. Google Calendar, we coordinate schedules there, and then everyone can see it, and it reduces our workload because everyone can enter their own information. We do WhatsApp for on the ground, where are you going today? Oh, I just got to campus. Where do I need to be? That's really handy for that. Trello is a nice to-do list organizer, and then Slack is good for organizing conversations. So I don't like searching through my emails and having my inbox get all cluttered up. And Trello is great for, Slack is great for getting your conversations organized by topic. You can search them, and then you can also interface it with things like Google Calendar. Then we got to the point where now we're going to do a test, right? But what are the materials we use for this test? So I made puzzle boxes for birds, and I do this we just started using 3D printers, and we use laser cutters. And design files are made using open source freeware, and we put them up at the GitHub repository. So now it's public, and anyone can see and download the file and then print out the exact same apparatus, which makes my research actually reproducible. So anyone can take this particular puzzle box that we use and try it on a different species or a different group of grackles, and it would be the same thing. And then we also give the birds touchscreen experiments. So they make choices by touching a screen, and we code this using open source software, which is CyclePy. So those are some fun things that we're able to do along the way. And then we get to the point where we're actually collecting the data, which is also online. So I usually live in Germany, and my staff are where the birds are, which right now is in Arizona. And so we all use the same data sheets. So Google Sheets is nice because multiple people can be collecting data at the same time and entering it at the same time in the same data sheet. And if I'm in Germany, I can watch my staff enter the data. We don't use paper anymore, so it's all computer-based. So there isn't the step from transferring notes from paper to computer to make that extra error that could happen where transcription errors can occur. And then we collect data on mobile phones when we're observing individuals and doing what's called a focal follow. So you follow a bird for 10 minutes and you record everything it does. Well, we do this on a mobile phone too, using free software called Primate. So we've got the process pretty automated, and then at the end of the day, we need to back up all of this digital data, which we do at Max Planck. They have a thing called Keeper, and it's a place where I can just throw a ton of data, which is great because we have a lot of videos. There's some seats down here if you want to come on in and okay, you can stand. Okay. But not everyone's at Max Planck, so what can you use? Right now, OSF has unlimited space for files, so you could use that. Maybe the university here has a repository where you can store your data as well. There are other options that right now are free and available to use for everyone. And then we have collected the data, the study is now done, we write it up and revise the pre-registration, so now it's going to be a preprint. This is going to be a paper. And I can put it at bioRxiv, submit it to PCI Ecology again for its second peer review, which is basically just to make sure that what I did matches what I said I was going to do. And then I deposit the data. So I really like a data repository that's nonprofit owned called KNB, the Knowledge Network for Biocomplexity. And they even though I do not like pure ecology research, they let me do my comparative cognition research and put it there. So they seem to be really open, but one of the things I like about this is that it's part of the Data One project, which is where they're trying to gather data from all data repositories and make it searchable and from one place. And that's really useful for when you're trying to enter your data and have it be findable. But also, they have, to get your data uploaded into the KNB database, you have to put all of this metadata in, and it's great because it forces you to make your research really clear in terms of what you did, how you collected it, what was part of the process. And this is information people will need to be able to use your data. So, yeah.
KNB is probably a great data archive. I haven't heard about it, so it's just great. But I'd just like to jump in and say that there is a data archive for open data archiving at the UIT.
Cool.
We have a data archiving service. It's called UIT Open Research Data. So please be aware that we have a service and we help you with the curating the data. And this is for open archiving, so no sensitive data should be there.
UIT Open Research Data. Nice. Great. So another free place to put your data. Okay, and then let's see. Let's say it passes its peer review again at PCI Ecology, and now it's out there. It's out there in the world as a preprint, and then I can submit that to a journal if I wanted to. But it's already been peer reviewed, so I can decide what I want to do with it at that point. So So I wanted to just show you a bit of the pieces here because it can be like, all right, what is GitHub and what do all these things look like if I was to actually implement them? For me, it gives me a better idea of like how I could use this tool for myself if I can see how it actually works. So here is my there we go. Here are 7 of my pre-registrations that I have at GitHub. This is my table of contents, which is kind of cool because I actually started putting these pre-registration citations on grant proposals and in job applications. So I don't know if they'll count it as a research output, but it certainly is a research output because it takes a lot of work to get it into this particular shape. But it's not more work, it's just work that you do before the study rather than after the study. So GitHub is awesome because it's version tracked. You can assign a DOI and it's this living document. So I just have like, for this, let's say we look at number 1 here. For this one file, I will have one document that just undergoes changes throughout its life cycle and throughout the time of the study. So at first it's a pre-registration, and then I start to collect the data. Later on it becomes a preprint, and then if I get it peer reviewed, I'm starting to like catch myself on this. Okay, here we go. If I get it peer reviewed, then it's a peer reviewed version. So you can see this one file and how it undergoes changes throughout the whole course of the scientific process, which makes it much more organized and transparent because it's easy. And then this is what one of my pre-registrations starts to look like. So I say at the beginning, like, here's the state of the data. This pre-registration was written before data were collected. If I make changes, and I do, like this thing, science is a verb. It is a living process. And of course, things are going to change from when I write my pre-registration to, all right, well, I've never done this with a graphic before. How is this going to work? And we have to change things all the time. But it's just a matter of documenting what you change and when and why. And try and do it as a priori as you can, like as predictive as you can. Like, I think I'll change it this way, and then look at the data and see if that would actually work. And then I write out the hypotheses and the predictions, and so you can just see a little taste of that here. So here is an R Markdown file of my pre-registration, one of my pre-registrations in RStudio. So you can open R Markdown files in RStudio, which is also open source and free. And it's pretty cool because you can up here, so here's the text that I edit, and here's R code part, here's the text part, and you can see it over here, the R code part is in gray, and the text part is not in gray. And it's really easy to make, for instance, data checking bigger than the other text by putting 4 hashtags in front, and if you want it bigger, then you put 5 hashtags in front, or 4, anyway, more or less hashtags make it bigger or smaller. Those kinds of formatting are pretty easy. And then you can output it to, you can make it an HTML file, a PDF, or a Word file, and there are a lot of other formats you can export it to as well. So which makes it really easy to share. So like, let's say you have someone who definitely can't open RStudio, you can just output it to a PDF, and they can comment on the PDF version as well. And the PDF is beautiful because it uses LaTeX. So, you know, your figures look all nice and it's formatted, and yeah. So it's a really, really amazing tool, and it doesn't quite take that long to learn. I thought it was going to take longer to learn this piece, but GitHub was a bit longer than this piece. Okay, so then at peer community in ecology, how does it work in terms of like getting a pre-registration peer reviewed? We're starting to go past noon. Do we want to do some more directed, like, what are you interested in? What problems are you, kind of more discussion kinds of things? I know that we have the room until 1, but I just want to make sure that we're taking this where you want to go and not just listening to me talk all the time. Does anyone have any discussion points they want to bring up that they really just want to address before we leave this room? Because we can insert it sooner rather than later. Yeah?
I was just wondering, if you put everything up openly, does anyone ever steal your ideas?
Does anyone ever steal my ideas? So yeah, like this whole getting scooped thing. Well, I have not had that happen, and I'm also not afraid of it happening because I am, well, when I pre-register something at GitHub, the date and time stamp is on there. So I have that I can rely on. And so if something were to come up, I can say, well, look, it was my idea first, and here's like uncontrovertible evidence. Also, actually the opposite is true for me. I really like having my work publicly out there right now, like at the pre-registration stage, because it saves me a lot of time. Sometimes my colleagues will come to me and say, hey, we're thinking about doing this kind of flexibility test. What are you using? And I'll be like, oh, instead of having to write like this huge long thing, which I don't have time to do, I just send them to my GitHub the right pre-registration, and then they can even like print out the design files and stuff. So it saves me a ton of time. Also, if someone does want to do the same studies I'm doing, it would be great, because when I'm actually done with collecting data on the grackles, I have more to compare them with, and it gives me more context. Yeah, so I mean the thing is I'm testing a hypothesis that was already out there in the world, and the way I'm doing it is different. Also, no one else is working on this particular species in terms of animal behavior, so I don't have fears around that. Yeah.
Do you think that it's connected with your practices of publishing? Because if you don't publish in these high impact journals, then maybe you're not so relying on your research being like completely novel, and maybe you can't get anywhere.
That
and take that out of the equation.
It does, and that is a point that I really wanted to make. So thanks for bringing it up. I only submit papers to journals that select based on scientific validity and not subjective impact. So there are a lot of journals out there that will only select papers. They get a paper and they say, all right, is this scientifically valid? Publish, accept. If it's not, don't. And they give very explicit instructions to their reviewers to say, look, we do not want subjective comments. You need to back up your statements in your review, and we're only judging based on this. So please only judge based on that. That totally changed my game. I waste so much less time because of that. You know, because you take a paper and you shop it around to all these journals that select based on subjective impact. And they're like, oh, that's not good enough, and I'm not broad enough, and you know, it's such a waste of time. And I'm tired of it, and it's also a waste of public money. So what is important to me is that my research is scientifically valid. And whenever I submit it to these journals, I get useful feedback, and it gets published. So that is really key. And you're right in that these journals that select based on only scientific validity are not looking at novelty or perceived novelty. And so they will, so if I'm not trying to spin all these sexy stories and make this novel thing, then yeah, it'll be less of an issue for me in terms of feeling like I might be getting scooped as well. It's a really good point. Yeah. Yeah. That takes me down another rabbit hole of, you know, if you know how much research you have to do to get a novel result, it's like, yeah, it's not very much research that actually is novel. Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think of initiatives like Sci-Hub?
Yeah, Sci-Hub.
Things like that, yeah.
Like getting,
because I mean, the way they get your research out, it's like torrent bay for papers and stuff like that.
yeah.
I understand it gets your research out to people who don't have access to these subscription journals.
Yeah.
Yeah, but on the other side, it's like a gray area. So what are your thoughts about that kind of thing?
Yeah, on the other side, you're saying it's a gray area, like legally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm fundamentally against publishers locking up my research so that no one can read it. So I think that anything that gets those papers out there is good. Because knowledge is a common good, period. So, yeah. Without going into more details involving swear words and things like this. Yeah. Have you seen that paper where someone did a study, I'm not remembering who, on Sci-Hub users, and if you look at the use, it's people all over the world, and mostly people at universities.
Yeah, that's true. I use it in my bachelor because my university couldn't afford to. I studied that. My university couldn't afford to subscribe to journals, and then if you go online, they're like, if you want to pay for this article, it's like 200 euros sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we in the university would use that kind of initiative. But then when I came here, and then the university pays for journals and stuff like it's now like I'm on the other side of the circle. So
You are, and there's another side of it as well. And that is that every time you click on an article, so like let's say I went to Google Scholar and I'm searching for behavioral flexibility, and I find an article that I want to potentially cite. And I click on it and it takes me to, let's say, the publisher's website, like this article version at the Wiley website, for example. They use the statistics of how many clicks they get, and then they massively inflate them, and they tell the universities, well, your users are using our journals this much, so you need to subscribe to these journals. But they'll like any click, they'll take a click to an abstract, they won't even take like clicks to like downloads. Yeah. They're just like, so they use these numbers to inflate and try and sell to our universities. So I kind of now try to not go to the publisher website when I'm, like on Google Scholar, you can also see like if there's a preprint or if there's a whatever else, I'll like click on that rather than the main link. It's because I don't want to give the publishers my click. It is outrageous how deep they are in this web.
Because then they can extract more money from the university, I guess.
They can try and convince the university with numbers. Yeah. It's really frustrating. Yeah.
Do you think we could flip the switch on black open access, black open access as in Sci-Hub? Because what if a court suddenly determined that all publicly funded knowledge can't be copyrighted? Let's say, because it's all just an interpretation of copyright, right? These large publishers, they retain copyright over whatever researchers donate to them. But what if what if it belonged to the public in the first place and such a practice wasn't allowed? Why does society accept there being a copyright on public knowledge?
That
It's kind of strange.
is an amazing question. Why does the public accept that there's a copyright on common knowledge?
It's public research. How do private companies own that? It doesn't make sense. Right?
It doesn't make sense. No. I know that some universities like Harvard started this, where they, by the way, their ability to buy science stickers here on the front in case you want one if you need to leave. So Harvard has a thing where no paper is allowed to leave the university. So let me rephrase this. All people who publish research at the university are required to retain the copyright. And so they somehow, and I'm not remembering exactly how, have an agreement that makes this happen so that no author is signing over their copyright. And if they want to try and sign over their copyright, they have to get an explicit waiver to do so. And so this has kept a lot of their knowledge available to them. I think what they do with it is they go green open access with it. They'll publish it at repositories and things like this so that they're still publishing at subscription-based in hybrid journals, but they're at least able to get the version out to the public.
We do that here too, to green archive topic.
Green open archive, yes. Green open access, I mean, yes. We yes. Yeah. I may add that the UIT has a policy a year old or a little more than a year old on open data, research data, saying that the research data that UIT and with the researchers are collecting is owned by the UIT. It's not owned by the researchers. So they're not allowed, the researchers at UIT, and including these students, are not allowed to give away the research data. You can send it to a journal, but at least you need to retain the right to make it open archive. So you cannot send it to a journal who locks it in.
Okay.
For research articles or research articles or publications, it's not like that. So we could wish for something similar on publications, but the difference is that research data is not copyrighted. You can copyright the data. You can copyright the database where you organize the data, but not the data itself. That cannot be copyrighted. But publication, when you write, creates a copyright in itself.
Yeah. So it's essentially just the written document which is copyrighted. Okay. So yeah. So this is, I guess, this is kind of the loophole, is that the publishers, they retain the copyright of the documents. And the documents contain the knowledge, but I guess that's kind of hiding the knowledge by an open document, or yeah.
Yeah, but is a member of the public going to take your data set and analyze it and get the results that you got so that they could test the hypothesis that you got? You know, like, that's not going to happen. So I really like your idea of, like, the public. Shouldn't there be something, like, in the public saying, like, this is not allowable, you can't copyright knowledge?
I think activists should rally to have the courts, Supreme Courts in some countries perhaps, determine knowledge as copyrightable.
Sorry, just a second.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt your discussion, but there's a time rise. I think most people, and what I also can have more discussion, like, but there was the one that after.
Okay.
With the summer red up.
Sounds good, yes. So, we'll continue. Yes, and I do like to hear what you want to talk about as well, so do feel free to keep directing.
We're going to have some smaller discussions.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so PCI ecology. What they are is a peer review or a preference, but what I implemented there was peer review of pre-registrations as well. So how that works is you have your R&D file or PDF or whatever version format you want to have it in. You submit it to the PCI ecology website, and you have a version that's publicly available online, so GitHub, for example. It goes through this, an editor picks it up, it goes through this review process, you can revise and resubmit, well, keep going through that process until it passes peer review. If it passes, then the peer review history is public on the PCI website, and you put the most recent version on the archiving site that you chose, like bioRxiv or your GitHub repository. And then you do the study, and then once you're done, you submit it again to the preprint server, bioRxiv or so, and then it goes through this review process again, and then if it's passes peer review, and here now they're just checking to see that you did what you said you were going to do, and that if you changed things, that they were well documented and you did it in a more of a planned way. And then it can, once it passes peer review, It's recommended. You have the PDF up at the bioarchive site, and you can feel free to submit this paper to journals. It's still a preprint, so whatever journals accept preprints, they'll accept this. And now PCI has agreements with a lot of journals where you can make it so that they will pretty much accept the peer-reviewed preprint without going through another round of peer review, because it's the same people. Where PCI is researcher-run and owned, so it's all the same people who would be reviewing the papers that this other journal has already happened. So it's a really cool initiative that I'm pretty excited about, and it's a way that I've been able to make my research, make the peer review periodization process fit my research in a more flexible way. And so then, yeah, if you have changes that you need to make along the way, just make sure that you document it. That's the whole point of this particular slide. OSF, this is what OSF looks like. Maybe I'll go a little faster so that we can get some more discussion topics. This is what that looks like, in case you haven't used it before. And Trello, you can move these little, each one of these pieces is movable. You can move them between people's tasks, and I can see when people archive a card or when they create a new to-do list for themselves, which helps me track the study. And then on Slack, this is what Slack looks like. You have these conversations, you just write down here at the bottom, you can type in some text, and then it goes to this particular channel, and over here you have channels that are organized by topic. So if you're commenting on a particular topic, you can put it there. It's a nice way to organize conversations. Design files up at GitHub. This is a puzzle box for Grackles, and the files are all available. And the data sheets, Google Sheets. This is what our data sheet looks like and how to collect data without paper. So now we've got sections on recruiting and trying to combat implicit biases when making decisions about who to include as part of your team. So I have been doing things like setting recruitment goals. So I look at, right now our research is happening at the University of Arizona State University. And so I was looking at, well, if the undergrads that we're going to be recruiting to the team are local, then I want to look at local statistics on, what groups they're coming from and what numbers should I be trying to match in terms of like the local population in the composition of my undergrad team. So I make targets that way so I can try and make sure that I don't use my implicit biases to go the wrong way and only have people from one particular group on my team. And I make a recruitment strategy that targets recruitment from groups that are traditionally underrepresented in STEM. And this is because a lot of people who don't grow up with a particular amount of privilege don't know how to play the game. And so if you don't know how to play the game, like a lot of my students don't know how doing a research project as an undergraduate could even be valuable to them. And so I want to make sure that I'm not discriminating against those people in joining the team, where they can learn about research. What is it? Do they want to do it? Oh, and I can tell them how it might help their CV and their career in the future. So I want to make sure that I'm including those people and that they're not getting passed over. So I recruit at groups like SACNAS in the US, which is on advancing Chicanos, Hispanics, and Native Americans in science. They're the most lovely group to work with. I just love going and talking to them at their meetings and hearing from them, and we have a lot of students come from there, and they're great to work with. So these groups exist probably in a lot of places, groups that are similar that you can go and talk to. So I highly recommend that. In terms of applying, when I write the text at my website where an undergrad can go and figure out if they want to apply to work with me, I make the language on my website and in the email announcement, I make it feminine coded, which if you go to this website, Gender Decoder, you can put in any text and it will tell you whether it's feminine coded, masculine coded, or neutral. It's been shown that if you make job advertisements feminine coded, women are more likely to apply, and it does not deter men. So it makes it more of a welcoming place for people to feel like they can go, and that they would be more included. I avoid buzzwords. I was starting to conduct my first recruitment this way, and I was like asking for help on Twitter, and of course I got amazing help on Twitter. So URMs, underrepresented minorities in sciences, are dissuaded by buzzwordy recruitment language that makes it sound like I would be a broader impacts token. That's not the point of this for me. As a biologist, I know how diversity is important in ecology, and I think that diversity, and it's been shown through a lot of research, that diversity in research and researchers is really important. So that's the point of this. I want to be able to do my research better by having a more diverse team. So I avoid buzzwords as skills that are needed, not necessarily ones that I can train, because URMs typically only apply when they meet 100% of the criteria, and that's not the point in my particular ad. People don't need to meet everything. It's just more of a general interest that they should have in the research. And then I state that I want URMs to apply so that they feel like they can be included, and it's not this kind of thing that is not a welcoming environment. I want them to feel very welcome, everyone to feel very welcome. So these are some of the strategies I started using to combat my implicit biases. I'm also learning a lot from collaborating with men, which is a project out of Maria Bird's College at the University of Cambridge, where they have a report, and the report is in there it is, the link there. It has a ton of information in it, it's great. Giving fun talks makes people feel more included, so I try to do that as well. And then without inclusion, diversity initiatives might not be enough. But, what did I just do? Something. That's interesting. I clicked something on this, and it's not anything. Oh, I accidentally clicked on the tweet. Okay, so it's not back yet. Here we go. There we go. Is it back? There we are. Sorry about that. Right, without inclusion, diversity initiatives might not be enough. Because prestige is subjectively defined by the privilege, which is absolutely ridiculous. So it's bad for science, and it's bad for research, and it's bad for scientists. Yeah, there's a really good piece in Nature News about this, where you can read about how disadvantaged students are not getting into the sciences, and it's a huge problem that we have to address by addressing, like, what can we do about it? We can address our own individual implicit biases. Like, I was implicitly biased against women in science a couple of years ago, and I've had to work hard to change that. But it's because we all grow up in cultures where we're exposed to the same biases. So people tend to think, oh, you're a woman in science, so you know all about women in science and the biases against them and how to work that. I had to learn a ton. I had to do just as much research as a man would about implicit biases against women in science to figure out how I was implicitly biased and how to change that. So, and that probably can translate to a lot of other biases, but each section is probably has its own pieces that are really important to be aware of. And then I write unbiased, well, I try to write unbiased reference letters, because when my undergraduates work with me, they move on to other projects, and what happens is that they ask me for letters of reference. And here, Claudia Vasha is talking about how she's very pleased to see the instructions. We would request that you do not use the candidate's name, but instead refer to them as the candidate. In addition, please remove any pronouns that indicate the candidate's gender. Instead, please use they instead of he or she. So this is great because it gets rid of implicit biases that a reader of this letter will have against gender, but also a lot of my students have last names that are identifiable with a URM group. and I don't want to call that out in a letter as well. So if I just use the candidate, then I'm hopefully not flagging up any implicit biases in the readers of these letters. And I now make sure that my reference letters are masculine coded. I run it through the gender decoder because masculine coded letters are seen as more powerful. And I want my students to have a better chance of getting whatever it is they're applying for. So, in terms of selection pressures that we can now start to exert in academia in various ways, there will be very soon a database of editors where editors are listing what open practices they value. And this is something where, you think if you're an editor at a journal, so like I'm an editor at Royal Society Open Science and at PCI Ecology, and you'd think, oh, well, don't you just have to go by that journal's policies? But no, because, yes, you do, but the journals don't have policies on all these little decisions that you might be making. So here, what we're saying is, what decisions are going into an editor's process, and making that explicit and asking them to be explicit about, would you value this paper more if it had a preprint, or if the data were open, or this or that. And then, if you're submitting to a particular journal where you do get to make some recommendations about which editors you want to have handle your paper, you could look at the database, ideally, and hopefully there would be some options for that journal there, and you could make choices about those people and include those people on the list that you're suggesting should handle your paper. So it's not out yet, but it should be soon. We're at the process of developing the database on the back end right now. But that should be a cool resource in the future. Okay, so those are like the main bulk of the slides that I was thinking about. I have some discussion points that we could talk about, which are these 4 points, and there are slides that go with them, but it's now 12:39, and I don't know how people are feeling or where you want to go from here. So, what do you think?
I think there could be good discussion points for our lunch. That would be all right.
Of course.
Then we have some good Sunday moments, some networking and more questions for you if people have some questions.
Yeah.
I don't know what people feel.
So people are probably hungry. Can we bring lunch in here, or do we go out? Okay. Shall we go grab?
Do you have more you want to say? Because now I will, of course, say thank you.
Oh, okay.
Are there any questions now? Or no one said any question? I have some here for you.
Oh wow! Oh my God.
Christmas card. I don't know
Thank
if
you.
you have time to see the northern lights here, but at least you can taste it.
Oh my gosh, this is great.